It's a risk, obviously, they're willing to take. I think it's going to do well for them.
This podcast is hardly focused.
The French.
I thought of you because the I think this was like the last thing or one of the last things they announced at the June Nintendo Direct. Probably the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
A nice surprise. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I don't know if it's right to say a sequel or a spiritual successor, probably a spiritual successor to the remake of Link's Awakening from a few years ago, which I absolutely loved and have played multiple times. But it will be in the same style. I believe it's using the same or a variant of the same map of Hyrule from that game. It's going to be top down. The characters are all going to look cute and adorable. But the biggest thing, the Shyamalan twist, role reversal. You're playing as Zelda this time around, which means that everybody who's not familiar with the franchise, who doesn't realize that Zelda is not the main character, that you do not play as Zelda. Well, joke's on everybody else, because now you are playing as Zelda. And we can count it in the official canon, because the last time you got to play as Zelda, it was in a game that, for all intents and purposes, does not exist. We do not talk about it. It is it's
not real.
Right.
It's Philips.
A result of the failed Nintendo Sony Philips partnership that led to the Sony PlayStation being created. But now we finally have our first official Zelda game starring Zelda, where I believe she needs to, among other things, rescue Link, her savior.
Which is crazy, because I'm pretty sure on this show I've mentioned that very premise. I'd be like, it would be really cool if they had a Zelda where you play as Zelda and you have to save Link. It's almost like they listen to the show.
Yes, they do. And Nintendo listens to Hardly Focused.
I'm hoping that with this new Zelda game, because it's different, we don't know a lot about it, I guess, so it's kind of hard for me to jump the gun. But from what it looks like, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong. Well, I maybe not hoping that I'm wrong, but I could be wrong, that it doesn't look like it's a melee-driven game. And I'm worried that some people are going to shit on it, because it's instead of the regular Zelda games where you're Link with a sword and you combat, you melee people, which means you go up close to them with a sword or some kind of weapon and you slash. It seems like you're casting spells and getting other things to fight for you, or using spells to create rocks or something, and you can throw them. But there doesn't seem to be the hack and slash method of combat, and I'm curious how people are going to do with that.
Sounds like you are using the environment around you.
Yeah,
and you really have to strategize how you are going to take on challenges, how you're going to take on enemies. According to IGN, Zelda will have to work with a mysterious fairy named Tri to use the power of the Tri-Rod to create echoes, which are imitations of things found in the environment. This means that you can make bridges out of old beds, use water blocks to reach new heights, and more.
It's cool. I love the mechanics. I love it. I'm just worried that a lot of people are going to shit on it because it's not the same.
It's not traditional. Yeah, it's something
it's
different.
Not there's something about hack and slash games. I haven't played all the Zeldas, and I'm not really really well read in Zeldas, but I feel like this is one of the first where it's not going to be combat. It's going to be more strategy,
or creating traps so you don't have a weapon on you per se, but you can create something to lure an enemy into a trap, into an obstacle, so you can get by. It sounds like sort of the environment manipulation from Breath of the Wild, and then the other things you could do in Tears of the Kingdom are going to be that's going to be present here or at least heavily inspired.
It's so ballsy. So ballsy considering what they're following.
Yeah.
It's like, but you know, I'm open for it. Like, I will admit, like a lot of the fear comes from me, not necessarily like me thinking like, oh, I hope everybody else, like I say that, but like, of course, like I'm always worried that because I tend to get kind of frustrated with games like that where it's because I just kind of want to mindlessly slash things, you know, like, but like, I know I've always loved Zelda games, so I'll see. Like, you know, I'll probably be wrong,
Honestly,
but I can see like myself being a little bit overwhelmed because there was this one screen that they showed where like a bunch of enemies were coming towards her, and I'm like, oh, I can't imagine like having like a bunch of enemies like circle around you or like approach you and you're not able to whack 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 or
mhm.
hit them away. You have to like summon other monsters to fight for you, kind of like Pokemon
Or Pal World.
or that. I'm
Uh,
not familiar, but
well,
yeah.
that game kind of came and went. That was really popular for like 2 weeks, and you just explaining that just reminded me of Pal World. But
I mean, it's a fun try. So I'm happy for them.
I am totally for breaking from tradition, breaking from the established formula, and doing something different. I mean, the fact alone that you're playing as Zelda this time around is a welcome change in and of itself. And to have her be more passive and I guess innovative, it's a welcome change from like you go into any other Zelda game and like, okay, I'm Link. I'm going to have a sword. I'm going to have a shield. I'm going to have a bow and arrow. Like it's very predictable. Like you're familiar, so you know what you're getting into. It's very formulaic. For them to just do a complete 180 and do something completely different, I think
They have to.
It's a risk. Obviously, they're willing to take. I think it's going to do well for them. And
I hope so. I hope so because I feel like they kind of have to do it this way because there's nothing else that would gravitate, you know, buyers to a new Zelda game because honestly, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom like put such a high bar. It's going to be hard to like go back to the same old, same old. So they had to do something new.
sure, yeah.
So this is cool.
And it's always nice that if we're going to have now a sub franchise of, a Link's Awakening universe. These are two games now that have just, we didn't know they were coming. We knew, we knew since Breath of the Wild that there was going to be a sequel, that it was going to use the same map of Hyrule that they built for that. And then these, Link's Awakening and now Echoes of Wisdom seem much easier to develop with quicker turnaround times. Now, granted, kind of hard to believe that Link's Awakening came out 5 years ago, but I mean, in this day and age, that is a quick turnaround time for a AAA game. I'm going to say that these are AAA games too.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, didn't Link's Awakening came out like 15 years ago?
The original?
Yeah, or like it came out a long time ago.
Or the
It was for
DX
Game Boy.
version. Yeah, the original came out in the 90s, the early 90s.
Okay,
And then DX was the Game Boy Color remake. And yeah, that came out.
But still completely different. It's not like they just like upgraded the graphics and called it a day. It's like, no, it's a different perspective even. Like it's not completely top down. Like the original was like really,
as they all are. Yeah, all the old Zelda games were completely top down.
So this one's kind of like a little angle, but like also it's more three-dimensional and more built.
Yeah, and something that really annoyed me with Link's Awakening on Switch, as much as I love that game, is that even though it's like quasi top down, like it's blurry. The top like edge of the screen is blurry. You know what I'm talking about?
Like depth of field. Like
sure.
Fake,
yeah. It's
fake depth of field.
Yeah. It's just this like blur that isn't so noticeable when you're playing handheld, but if you're playing docked, then it's very noticeable. And it's just Like it kind of took away from any sort of immersion that I could garner from playing this game. So hopefully that's not present in Echoes of Wisdom unless it's a necessity in order to render the game. In which case, okay, fine, I'll deal with it, but it'd be really nice if it wasn't there. And I got to say, Nintendo Switch has the processing power of like the Xbox 360, and we're still in 2024, 2025. We're still releasing new games for this system where it's, you know, nowhere near as powerful as its competition. But at the same time, as I've always thought and have said, the first party games, the ones that are Nintendo developed specifically for the Switch, always do really well compared to the, you know, the third party ports, like the most recent Mortal Kombat game, which was kind of harkening back to the old days where, you know, you'd have, let's say Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, for example, you'd have, you know, the version of the game for the PlayStation. You'd have it for the Sega Dreamcast, which was a graphical upgrade. And then the Game Boy game, for all intents and purposes, was a completely different game.
Yeah, I played it. It was really hard.
Right.
Like, 'cause it's just, especially somebody who's so used to the PlayStation version and the Xbox version. And
people still love it, though.
It was still something.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm super impressed by? I've had my Switch for
4 years.
For about 4 years, yeah. You remember.
Yeah, you bought it during the pandemic, and you paid a lot of money for it.
I did. Did. Oh, man. But the amount of times that I've played it docked, I could count on one hand.
Yeah,
it's just it's so much more convenient to just hold it and just play it like that. And like the few times that I have played it on like a TV, I'm like, holy shit, like that's crazy to think like there's so much detail that I just like completely miss out on. But
unless you're playing a third party port like the BioShock games or like Skyrim, in which case you realize like, wow, this looks like garbage. This was designed with
for small.
Yeah, handheld mode in mind. Witcher 3, if you play that docked, that looks like just hot garbage.
Yeah.
I guess it's just upscaled. It's like really it's a very low resolution that is heavily upscaled to be docked. I don't even have mine plugged into my TV anymore because I was
Me neither.
I was never playing it docked. So
I'm gonna probably have to switch to that though, because my left Joy-Con has that little glitch where
you got drift.
The drift.
I can fix that for you.
See, I didn't have to finish my sentence. You knew exactly where I was going.
Very quickly, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom releases on the Switch on September 26, 2024. That is later this year, and we're talking about playing the Switch exclusively in handheld mode. IGN says a limited edition gold-colored Nintendo Switch Lite with the Hylian crest will be available alongside the game.